Welcome to Up to the Minute. It is Wednesday, August the 26th of 2020. I'm Todd Duplantis. Glad to have you with us on our show this morning. Our campuses in technically HCC is closed right now. We'll have more on that throughout this broadcast here, but we wanted to bring you up to date with things, especially during these times with Hurricane Laura expected to projected to pass east of the Houston area. More on that in a moment. But right now, welcoming my co-host across town, Brittany Pacheco. Good morning, Brittany.
Hey, Todd. Good morning. Welcome back to the show. Try to hold it down for you as best as I could, but I'm glad you're back to take the reins.
Glad to have you with us. You did a great job while I was gone. Nice to have a few days off. But boy, things are busy. We're back one day here. It was 3 years ago today that Hurricane Harvey started to roll over the Houston area. It was just approaching us and then dumped feet of rain over the next several days on Houston. Unprecedented rainfall. And a person who knows a lot about that, joining us now is Bob McCracken, the Executive Director of Risk Management with Houston Community College. Bob, you know that hurricane all too well, don't you?
Good morning, Todd. Yes, that was an experience I hope to never relive.
It's an experience we all hope to never relive, but living on the Texas Gulf Coast, or really the Gulf Coast region, we're prone to tropical storms and hurricanes. And here we are once again, 3 years to the day later, that we're facing another tropical threat. This one, Bob, Hurricane Laura, looks like it may brush us by to our east, and that's very fortunate for the eastern area.
Yeah, it's been a nerve-wracking last couple of days. We've been keeping a really close eye on this, and as recently as yesterday, there was some really high concern that it was going to be a pretty direct hit on Houston. It looks like over the last 24 hours, that track has pretty solidly shifted to our east, and so hopefully, we know we're going to get some weather out of it, but hopefully nothing too severe, and hopefully there's relatively little damage.
Just to give people an idea of what goes on in the background for Houston Community College, we're a very large system. There are a lot of moving parts, but we have an emergency response team, and I know you head that team. Maybe you can tell us what goes on in the background, because you constantly meet with administrators, and your team is in charge of keeping everyone up to date with all the data that you're taking in from like the National Hurricane Center and so forth.
Right, and so we have an emergency manager. His name's Brian Oseni. And every Monday morning, he sends out a weather digest to, it's almost 100 people of just kind of, here's the forecast for the week and what we expect. And then during hurricane season, June through the end of November, we're checking that tropical weather update every day and kind of looking at the storms that are a week out, 2 weeks out, to see what's developing. And then we have what's called an incident management team, which is, HCC is very large. We have a lot of departments. It's a lot of organizational structure, but sometimes you just need to kind of bypass all of that and make decisions very quickly. And so the incident management team lets us do that. And it has kind of the leadership from across the college, and we get together and we start reviewing this. We started actually doing reviews on this on Monday. We met this morning at 9 a.m. We'll meet 9 a.m., 6 p.m. throughout the storm, and we'll continue with that. And so that has our facilities chief and Dr. Perez and Dr. Grays and the police chief and communications and all of those folks, so that we can keep the chancellor informed and keep the board informed, and most importantly, keep our students and faculty and staff informed. Make those preparations.
Absolutely. And Bob, while I want to go ahead and take a look at one of the resources I know you use quite frequently. I'm going to share my screen and show everyone what we have going on here. Let's see. All right, there we go. This is the National Hurricane Center, and this kind of gives people an idea of what goes on. And I imagine you check this site regularly. This was probably one of the resources that keeps you up to date as well.
Absolutely. So National Hurricane Center, National Weather Service, we try to stay to those kind of official sources. It helps us kind of stay focused on the data and kind of the most accurate kind of factual forecast. And quite honestly, it helps us filter out some of the noise that sometimes you get with their forecasts tend not to be sensationalized in any way. And so when they say we need to worry, we know we really need to worry.
And right now we're looking at some data that shows you the wind speed and what's projected. Let me get to another screen here. This one is the projected path. And this is, I imagine, what you're watching over the last week, because Houston, the cone of uncertainty is kind of moved to the right, which is towards the east. But
Right.
as of yesterday, we were still included in that cone of uncertainty, and it looked like it might be heading our way.
Right. And remember, if you look at that kind of orangish dot there, right where it says 7 a.m. Wednesday, that's actually the hurricane force winds field and the tropical storm force wind field. And you can see it's much wider than the cone.
Right.
And so it's one of the things with the cone is you tend to focus on the center of that cone and think that's right where it's going to go. But in reality, it's often much wider than that. And so, with hurricanes, it's better to be on the kind of the south or the west side than on the north and east side. So this going to our east is certainly helpful.
And another, but this is one thing we want to keep an eye on, because this is what we still could be facing. We don't know how these gusts are going to go, but right now it says Houston could get anywhere from 10 to 20 mile an hour gusts of winds within the
Now actually the chart you're looking at there is the probability that we'll get tropical storm force winds, which is winds over 35 miles an hour. And you can see that we're pretty high probability, right? So we're somewhere between the 60 and 90%, depending on where between the 10 and 30%. Yesterday, we're up in the 60 to 90% range. So that's certainly helpful. But you can see it's a pretty narrow field as you head to the east side of town. It's going to be much more likely to have those tropical storm force winds. And so at HCC, we're preparing for power outages, right? And so, our facilities team and our police department and our IT department all have ways of kind of monitoring our buildings to make sure that we have power, because we know in Houston, if you lose power in a building, all kinds of things start to happen pretty quickly, especially with the humidity or if you have some wind damage or any water damage. And so we'll be monitoring that throughout the storm.
And some things that our students, faculty, and staff, and really the community need to keep an eye on. The weather.gov had a list of things that you should be doing right now. That includes removing items from near your windows, securing loose objects that may be thrown around, turn off water, electricity at main controls, move your vehicle and equipments to higher ground. Because I don't know if you remember, during Harvey, the city of Houston lost hundreds of vehicles that were left on lower ground because they didn't have a chance to move them. And I imagine that's one of the things you guys have to look at with making sure our fleet of vehicles are moved to higher ground.
Right. So we certainly want to move those. I think during Harvey, there were over 500,000 vehicles flooded in the area. And we feel that when we pay our car insurance rates every year.
Right.
And remember that in Houston, we're relatively flat, and part of the drainage system is the roads. And so the roads are designed to collect that water and funnel it through the storm system. And so, don't park on the streets because they're the most likely to flood.
And also, the city of Houston is asking people to stay off the streets after 8 o'clock tonight. People still trying to evacuate from certain evacuation zones because some areas of Houston may get a storm surge effects, may still face that, and that's still a concern for some area. There's also a website that's been established by the Harris County called ReadyHarris.org, and they're a pretty informative website as well that you're very familiar with.
It's a fantastic website. I'd encourage anybody to go to ReadyHarris.org. You can find information on coronavirus, obviously, in the COVID situation, but they have hurricane preparedness. They have kind of checklists for how to get ready. They have the evacuation maps, right? So there's a voluntary evacuation map for zones A and B. There was a mandatory for the coastal zones, and you can see the zip codes and you can see the map of that on there. And it's a very informative site with a lot of good reference material. You can also sign up for weather alerts or for other alerts. And so you can sign up with Ready Harris and get a text message alert when there's a chemical spill or a hurricane in the Gulf or any other kind of natural disaster.
And some of those tips that you were talking about that they give on that website, make sure you have a 7-day supply of per person of can opener, paper plates, etc. Water, it takes 1 gallon a day you should plan for each person if you lose electricity. And personal hygiene, make sure you have hand sanitizer, toothpaste, chains of clothing, and nowadays face masks, because if you're going to evacuate, face masks are needed along with the hand sanitizer because we're still in the middle of a pandemic, Bob.
Absolutely. And that makes the whole sheltering operations thing immensely complicated. And I know that the county officials and state officials have been working on figuring those things out, but it impacts everything from how they do their intake to, the space requirements that they need for shelters, et cetera. So let's keep our fingers crossed, and hopefully we don't need too many people in them.
Bob, I know yesterday a decision was made to close the college, which is kind of tricky because technically we are not doing instruction in person. We're doing online instruction, but you still have staff on the campuses for certain functions, correct?
We do, and we still have, kind of work expectations. So while we're working from our kitchen table, or if we're students, we're in class from our kitchen table. There's still expectations around attendance and expectations around completing assignments. And so we felt it was important to give people the time that they may need to prepare their homes and their family in case the storm does come this way. Because if over late last night, if it would have shifted direction, there wouldn't have been a lot of time to kind of make an adjustment today. So we need to go ahead and give people that opportunity to take care of their lives.
I know the announcement was made, but once again, we want to clarify, if you are taking classes online right now, those will not happen today or tomorrow. But Bob, we're expected to go back in full force on Friday with online instruction, and your staff that's supposed to be on campuses are expected to return unless things dramatically change. Is that correct?
That's right. And that's what it looks like right now. And we'll monitor today. And by tomorrow, we should have a really clear picture of what the local situation is, and we'll post an update on our website. It's always good to go to Hccs.edu for your updates. And anytime there's severe weather in the Gulf or something major going on, we put kind of the banner ad up on the top with a link. And I'd like to point out, a lot of people don't notice it, but at the bottom of every page on Hccs.edu, there's an in case of emergency link at the bottom of every page. And if you click on that, you can get, there's a personal disaster kit kind of list. There's a general preparedness. There's a list of emergency phone numbers. I know that during Hurricane Harvey, I was using that list of emergency phone numbers because I could get to it with my phone. And I was able to call some kind of governmental services that I needed to because their numbers were on there for the various counties. So.
And we're grateful to have that list. Bob, we appreciate you joining us this morning and bringing our students, faculty, and staff up to date. Stay safe out there. Hopefully, we'll pull through this. We want to stress this is not going to be another Harvey event for the city of Houston. It looks like this is a quick-moving hurricane, and we're all praying and hoping for the best with it, Bob.
Thank you very much, Todd, and stay dry.
Thank you. Thanks for being here, Bob. All right, Brittany. So, a lot of big changes. I went on vacation for a few days and leave you in charge, and you got a hurricane coming. What's up with that, Brittany?
Todd, we live in Texas, so go big or go home. I mean, yeah. That's just what it is. No, this is obviously typical living in the coast over here that we have been in hurricane season for quite some time. So it's just interesting how it seems every few years or so, maybe even every year, we always go through some sort of tropical depression or a hurricane, and it's always right at the beginning of the school year. So I read somewhere on Twitter, I believe, that one of our followers said we had 2 solid days of school before a catastrophe. So yeah. It's just kind of how it goes. We have to roll with the punches. Again, this is what it's like living in the coast, and we're used to it in a way. I know for many people, this is a little bit of a trigger because of what they may have experienced with Harvey or Ike or any other natural disaster that we've had here in the Houston area. But please know that our thoughts are with you, and hopefully you and your family are prepared and taking precautions. And also, I just want to throw out there, Todd, for our students especially, that we do have counselors who are here to assist you all in whatever way capacity they can. This is a trying time, obviously, because we're in the middle of a pandemic. This is just one thing to add to the year 2020, and you're not alone. We're all in this together. And if you do need assistance, please be sure to reach out to our counselors through our website, hccs.edu/counseling.
That's a good point because we are in the middle of a pandemic, and that's stressful enough. Many of us have been in our homes for months now with very minimal exposure outside, and now we're facing a hurricane. Thankfully for us, unfortunately for our neighbors to the east, it looks like Houston is going to be spared a direct hit from Hurricane Laura. But these are always scary times. Whenever you have a storm in the Gulf, especially if you live in the Texas Gulf Coast region, it brings back memories of what's happened in the past. Most recently, Harvey, which dumped literally unprecedented feet of rain over the city of Houston. And, Brittany, no two hurricanes are the same, but in my news industry days, I covered several of them, from Katrina. And I remember this one reminds me a lot of what happened with Hurricane Rita, but I don't know if you remember that, but it went east of Houston and tracked straight up the eastern side of Texas, but left devastation in its path. And you really hope that this hurricane does not cause that much damage as what Rita did.
I remember Rita very well, Todd. I was in high school. It was just on the heels of Katrina, and that was an adjustment for our friends in Louisiana who evacuated to Houston. And I remember specifically with Rita that my parents and I were going to stay with my sister in the Tomball area. And what normally would take about a 45-minute, maybe 55-minute drive took 4 hours.
Yeah.
And I was reading some friends' Facebook posts about Rita and what that looked like for them just to get to Willis, Texas, which again is maybe 45 minutes to an hour going up 59. And it took 9 hours for them to get out there. So yes, there's definitely some triggering for many. I feel for you, honestly, I do. And hopefully this will not be as severe as maybe it could be. And I'm just hoping for the best. Hopefully everyone is, as I said, taking precautions, prepared for their families. Don't forget your fur children. Everyone, make sure you've stocked up on extra food, things that comfort them as well. This is going to be my first hurricane with my puppy Luna, and although she's going through her changes right now, we still want to make sure that she's taken care of. We made sure we got extra food, extra treats, toys for her to keep her entertained, and we'll just have to power through it together and make sure she's comforted. And it's going to be okay. I have a feeling it's going to be okay.
It's going to be okay. I feel very confident that we're all going to pull through this. And we are extremely fortunate that this is moving to the east of the Houston area, at least projected to move east of the Houston area. So Brittany, there's a few things we want to make announcements on. We have a number of events that may have been canceled over the next couple of days. Of course, we're not on campuses, so we don't have to worry about that. But we have a few things we want to let our students know of, especially during these times when people are needing Wi-Fi coverage. And there's some outdoor Wi-Fi zones that HCC has just announced. I think this was announced while I was on vacation.
That is absolutely correct, Todd. So there were many requests from students early on if HCC was going to install any Wi-Fi hotspot zones for them outside of the campuses. And listen, students, your prayers have been answered in that respect. So HCC campuses are still closed, but students are given options to support their online learning experience with such parking lot resources as our outdoor Wi-Fi zones to help you connect to the internet from your cars. Now, this is not available to every single one of our campuses, but it is open to both our current HCC students and our prospective students. So I'm not going to go into too many details right now, Todd, but I do want to illustrate that you will not have access to the restrooms in the building. So be sure you take care of that ahead of time or after you're done utilizing our Wi-Fi zones. And also you will not have access to outlets to charge your devices. So once again, make sure you prepare ahead of time before utilizing the Wi-Fi zones. And for other information about which campuses have these Wi-Fi zones, head over to hccs.edu/outdoor Wi-Fi and be sure to take part of that resource. I mean, obviously we're closed. I say closed because we've been working remotely. But your education is still important. So if you still want to work on your class assignments and need the Wi-Fi, take that precaution while driving. Don't stay out too late, obviously, and be sure you are prepared.
Another thing to help you, we have an online services toolkit that's available. It's a one-step guide for what to expect and where to get help. Answers are here from technology to textbooks to tutoring and more. Visit hccs.edu/online-toolkit. We'll have that link in the post to the show. Foundation Scholarship, of course, we had a breakfast this morning for the Black History Committee that went very well, raising money for that scholarship program. But if you need a scholarship, need some extra money for college, Brittany, the Foundation's deadline is approaching very quickly.
Very quickly, Todd. And by quickly, we mean next Monday, August 31st. So students, you have less than 1 week to apply for the HCC Foundation Scholarship. This is a great opportunity for both our domestic and international students to apply for. And coming from experience, I can tell you it makes all the difference in the world. So make sure you put in your application before Monday, August 31st, and do so at hccsfoundation.org/scholarships.
Well, that pretty much wraps up this show. I know there's some testing sites that are going on, but realistically, because of today and tomorrow and the hurricane passing by the Houston area, I imagine you would want those sites will be suspended for the next couple of days. So we revisit this on Friday. But tomorrow on the show, we were going to have on someone from the Lone Star Flight Museum. But guess what? They're out in Galveston. Who's on Galveston Island right now? Not many people, because they're in a mandatory evacuation order. So we will reschedule the Lone Star Flight Museum to another day, because then they'll need to certainly be careful out there, because regardless of where the storm is going, Brittany, there's expected to be some storm surge in the city of Galveston and along Galveston Island.
Absolutely. And Galveston is no stranger to these storms, Todd. And I remember reading recently from a friend, again on Facebook, that there was suggestion that this storm was going to be nearly as bad as the storm in 1900. And you know what happened to Galveston in 1900 with that. It was quite an experience. It basically wiped out the city of Galveston. Once again, hopefully it's not going to be as bad as someone was suggesting. But Galveston, for sure, it always has to take that caution. And while it may be difficult for everyone to leave their homes with uncertainty, you always have to take care of you and your family first. So best wishes to everyone along Galveston and the coast, all the way up to Louisiana,
Yeah, I read somewhere on the internet, I can't say where, and I'm not even going to attempt to name what news agency, that was comparing this storm to the storm of 1900. I'm sorry, I think that's very irresponsible to throw something out there like that. You cannot compare a storm like that. That was a devastating storm, and Galveston didn't have a seawall back then. So keep that in mind. That was the inspiration for Galveston to start building the seawall. I just thought was very irresponsible. I read that and it really, really grabbed me, because that's when you really strike fear into everyone. Now, granted, we all want to be prepared for a storm to hit, but at least in my personal opinion, I think we never compare something to that devastating of an event that happened to the city of Galveston.
I agree, Todd. And let's not, add fuel to the fire. And, as I said earlier, we as Texans along the coastline, we're pretty used to this season of hurricane season. And my heart also goes out to all the other people across the nation who are experiencing their own natural disasters, what's been going on in California for the last week, or if not more. And then also, we talked about this before the show began, what went on in Iowa that has not been receiving much coverage. So, we're not alone. Obviously, we go through this almost on a yearly basis, but, we have to prepare, and I have to remind myself, it could be worse. And sure, I'm grateful for having the resources to be prepared, and we just have to get through it, take it one day at a time.
the good thing about buying all the supplies for the hurricane, water keeps. I bought a bunch of water, and if I don't use it, we're going to hold on to it. It'll stay in the closet. I'll use it next time. So you can't ever be too prepared. You really can't for something like this. It looks like we possibly dodged a bullet with this storm, but we'll still stay prepared and be vigilant. And I hate, and I never use the term hunker down, and I'm never going to use that, but I'm going to stay indoors tonight and just try to keep safe and keep low key. So we encourage everyone to stay safe tonight, be close to family, and reach out to someone by telephone if you have to. Check on your neighbors, check on somebody who's alone. The chief always talks about this because sometimes they may need that phone call or inspiration because we're all in this together.
Absolutely, Todd. And if I can take a quick second just to reiterate what Bob McCracken was sharing about our emergency management here on the website. It's a really useful tool. Well, actually, I can't share it because I'm not the host of this meeting.
Share the screen. There you go. You're allowed to share now.
Thank you. But for everyone who may have missed out on what Bob was talking about, HCC does have an emergency management page that I'm going to bring up here in just a moment. So familiarize yourself with this page if you need resources to just about anything and everything. Risk management has put this page together in the event of these various situations. So utility outage, shelter in place, severe weather, just be aware that HCC does have this available to everyone, and you can get there by going to hccs.edu/emergency.
Great information to have, Brittany, and it's available to anyone who visits our website. So we're going to wrap the show up for today. We're going to, as long as we don't lose power tonight, we're going to attempt to go live tomorrow morning. You're up for going live tomorrow morning for a little while and kind of update everybody?
Providing I still have power, Todd. Yeah,
that's the big question. We've got a bunch of moving pieces, and if we all have power, we're going up. I'm staying optimistic. I think we're all going to be good through this little storm, little strong winds, but we'll be okay in our area of Houston. So be safe out there. Remember, our campuses, our online instruction classes are not happening today or tomorrow, but we're expected to return on Friday. So we're taking the next couple of days off so that our faculty, staff, and students at HCC can stay safe with their family. Brittany, stay safe out there. We will see you again tomorrow.
You as well, Todd. Everyone else who's been who's taken the time out of their morning to watch this broadcast, we appreciate you being here. Be sure that you are staying up to date with the latest from HCC by following us on our social media pages, but also checking out our HCC website, which is hccs.edu. More specifically, if you're interested in the latest updates, you can go to hccs.edu/alerts, and be sure to take those precautions that we've been talking about throughout this whole broadcast, and stay safe, everyone.
Absolutely. Thank you, Brittany. Stay safe. We're live on Up to the Minute. We're going to attempt to go live again tomorrow, and hopefully we'll see you live at 10 a.m. Thanks for being here. Be careful out there.